Amen. Thank you, sir.
Flag, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Is Mr. Drum online? Okay. But anyway, these interviews are going to take about 45 minutes each. They can take up to 45 minutes each. And what we're asking is that every member of council here asks one question. Pick out a question that's relevant to you that you think is very important. And if you have some others, that's fine. You get opportunity. But we want to try to make sure that we ask the same question of all the candidates. And so I'm going to start off by having Mr. Drum come on and just let us tell him, he's going to tell us a little bit about himself. And I'll just kind of go from there and doing it that way. So we can, we're not here all night doing this. So, Mr. Drum, how are you doing today, sir?
Can you hear okay, sir, Mr. John?
I can hear you. It's not pretty loud, but I do hear you.
Can you hear me okay, sir?
Okay, maybe I might need to hold the phone up.
Okay. This is Mayor Williams. And then we have Councilman Bover here, Deputy Mayor Goins, and Councilwoman Cost. And we just want you to just take a few minutes, just tell us a little bit about yourself, and so you can just kind of have at it. And then we're actually some questions, followed by some questions that we have for you as well. So if you want to start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, we can hear you fine.
Very good. Okay. I think I'm going to try to put you back on speaker. It's a little muffled, my listening to you, but I'll put you back on speaker. Okay, how does that sound?
Sounds fine.
Okay. About myself. Okay. Let's see. I grew up in the east and west coast of Florida. As a boy, I lived in Stewart and along the Indian River. And
you might need to put the mic a little closer to you. Just to
hear me.
Okay.
Yes?
Wait. Okay, no, you're fine. We just adjusted our mic here, so you probably can put it back down if you want to.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And I grew up over, and I moved from the East Coast to the West Coast and lived over in Bradenton for a while, moved inland. So I've had the benefit of on both Florida's coasts and the state. I graduated high school from Fairhaven High School in Polk County and went on to the USF in Tampa for my master's degree. Did an internship with the city of Gulfport and came to love municipal government. I thought when I went to college I was going to be working for the federal government, but I actually enjoyed working in small towns. That sort of set me on that path. And let's see, a little bit about myself. I'm married. I have an 11-year-old son, and I guess I moved around a little bit here and there. I went back home to be the city manager in Auburndale, which was Polk County, after college, and kind of started my career in city management. I've worked in a number of cities in Florida and now in Georgia. So I covered it for now.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. We're going to start off. We're just going to ask you a few questions here. We're going to start off with our deputy mayor from District 1.
How are you doing, Mr. Drum?
I'm good this evening, thank you.
The first question I have is, what is your ideal plan to spark growth and development in our most impoverished areas without displacing the current residents?
I'm having some difficulty understanding.
Can you hear me now?
The question was about economic development and sparking growth? Is that?
Yeah, what is your ideal plan to spark growth and development in our most impoverished areas without displacing the current residents?
Okay. What I've done historically, and I have worked a lot on that, I've done that in here in Brunswick specifically. We have a very old city here on the coast, and we have put plans in place for that very purpose. What we've done is try to set up enterprise zones. We worked with federal opportunity zones very similar to what we have in Cocoa. And we have recruited businesses actually bring in business for the opportunity zone to provide jobs for our residents. It's nice to have new growth come in from outside, and it might bring people with us as far as companies, which you're hoping to do when you bring in economic development is provide jobs for the people that already live there. I mean, it does occasionally happen, people will come and bring some people with them. But truly, if it's going to make a true difference to your community, you really need to provide those jobs. So we put incentives in our community here in Brunswick. I've done some of it in Zephyr Hills when I was there as well. And whether it's an industrial business we're trying to bring in some areas, we had an industrial park. We had certain incentives, whether impact fees to the enterprise zones. We waived the permit fees. We often gave grants determining what they needed to do, structures. Whether it's a small business or a large company, we definitely would forward a plan of incentives, almost like a menu. You can't say that you have one specific program that works for all. You really need to see the needs of the businesses looking to locate and see what you can draw them in. That's what makes the personal touch of that little extra bit that you can work out and find out what their needs are. Makes your community a little brighter than the next one. They're looking to potentially relocate instead. It's really a competition sometimes between you and your neighbor. And so if you can find that out and fill that niche, you need that company. So I would say whether it's small businesses, large businesses. In Brunswick as well, we also put in place using CDBG funds, a micro enterprise. It's a project that we decided you're not always successful with outside businesses. So let's try to build a business here. We had interested reps that had certain thoughts or skills. Sometimes they were small businesses, caterers. Sometimes they were larger businesses, such as putting in a trucking firm. And we've worked with them to help them learn how it is that educators to come in from we brought them from the University of Georgia in our case. And we basically gave some instructions on how you start a business. How do you set up a business plan? How do you get your occupational license? How do you make sure your properties are zoned correctly for what you need? And we started planting the seeds for businesses that we would bring into the community from our own citizens. We figured it's a way to help these people that had a great idea that wanted to start a business, know how to do it. And on the other hand, we're farming and planting seeds for our own town. So it had a double edge there. It came back primarily successful. Occasionally did not succeed, but most of them did, and we ended up with some nice, really good towns.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Anyone this audio right?
I'm back to my phone there.
Here, and it's I don't know if I can hear here.
Was there a follow-up question?
Yeah, there's going to be here in just a second. We're trying to get our sound system right here.
The clarity is much better when he has the phone off of speaker.
Yeah.
On Mr. Drum on your side, I don't know if it's possible if you have a headset to plug in or if you could just hold the phone like that, but we've got quite a bit of feedback when it's on speaker.
I see. Okay. I'm having difficulty understanding you all as well. It's a little muffled in my case. But okay, do I need to repeat?
No, you're good. Thanks,
Okay.
sir.
And then we got Another follow-up question from District 3, Councilwoman Cost.
District 4.
District 3, Councilman Bover.
Oh, that's me.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, sir. How are you? What strength do you bring that will contribute to the meeting of the expectation of this position?
I'm sorry, could you repeat it?
What strengths do you bring that will contribute to the meeting the expectations of this position?
Oh, okay. I believe I bring a lot of strengths. I've been working in the city management field in Florida for nearly 20 years in Florida, and more than 20, 25, 26 years, including my Georgia experience. All my work has primarily been with municipalities. And in your particular experience, I've worked in communities like Zephyr Hills, which had a very good-sized utility system, not only in the city but outside the city. Actually, they're one of the biggest utility customers. I have one tonight, is Zephyr Hills Water. So we had definitely good business model there in Zephyr Hills, so I have that background. I think my community is very similar to Coco. So the strengths I bring is a knowledge of Florida municipal government, working through the sunshine laws, working through the budget requirements, community redevelopment agencies. I know that Coco has 3. I've actually, in Florida, helped set up 2, initially from the start, 2 community redevelopment agencies, CRAs. And in Georgia, put one together, which is referred to up here as a tax increment financing district. But so whether it's economic development or whether it's managing the municipal services of police and fire, public works, I've got a very strong understanding of the laws that are involved in all those operations, budget operations, equipment needs. I've got a lot of background and experience in all of it. So I think I come to you with an education, with a spirit in public service, and a great track record, a lot of accomplishments.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Cost, District.
Hello, James.
Hey, good evening.
I enjoyed talking to you on the phone a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
So my question is this. I think we can all agree that we live in tumultuous times. Certainly this last year has been pretty surreal. I think that Coco has a lot of strengths. It also has a lot of challenges. In a position like this, the most important position in our city is going to require a lot of courage. Can you share with me an experience that required you to show that courage, that required you to encourage your consul to be courageous? Could you
To
understand
encourage-
that?
I think
Do you have an example of a time where you had to show considerable courage in a decision you made or in guidance that you were giving to your consul?
courage. I can think of a couple examples. I would probably go, a number of years ago, to the city of Lake Alfred in Polk County. And there was a park known as Twin Lakes Park. And Twin Lakes Park was an undeveloped piece of land on lakefront. And it just happened to be in one of the old historic neighborhoods. And the city had owned the land since the 1930s. And I had received an evaluation that year, and one of my council members said, "We'd like to see you look for more grants for recreation." And oddly enough, the week after that, I received a grant application in the mail, and I said, well, here's an opportunity. So I applied myself. I didn't have a city planner at the time, so I actually put the grant together, and mailed it off, thought I could check it off there. I applied for the grant, but actually I received the grant. it was a great thing. It came back to be, I think, about $150,000 for some park development. And what took the courage is because we really were, I was not even sure that we'd have much of a response, and wasn't even certain why the city owned land all those years without having done anything with it. But I came to learn that the residents in that neighborhood did not want to see a park. They felt that the home set up on a hill, you had a road, and then you had this declining land down to the lakefront. So in a way, they sort of felt like even though the city mowed it and maintained it, the trees and everything, that it was an extension of their front yard. And the other thing they wanted is they didn't want people coming from other neighborhoods to use the land. They said, we want to keep people out of our neighborhood. This is our exclusive neighborhood, and we want the city to withdraw the project and not take the grant. And it was actually an innocent application to fix a park. But what I ended up learning is that we had a bigger issue and a bigger problem. The historic African American neighborhood was actually an adjacent neighborhood, and it apparently came across to us in city administration and our elected officials was that there was this pushback of not allowing or wanting to have more people coming into the neighborhood for recreation. And we were concerned that there were potentially some racial overtones to this. And it became a very hot issue. I ended up, at the time, one of my council members, the vice mayor, Albertus Malsby, his daughter, she was about 40 years old at this time, but she remembered a little girl when she was 9 years old that she was escorted off the property by one of the people by saying she wasn't allowed to fish there because it was private land. And when she learned from me that it's been public land since 1933, she was horrified. And so it became a little bit of I won't say it was a little bit of a problem, it became a big problem. They did not want, a lot of the residents, a lot of the old-time residents did not want to see the park. Whether it was that they didn't want more activity or they didn't want to have additional people coming in from additional adjacent neighborhoods, it probably varied person to person. But the council gave a lot of slack to cancel the project, and I said, this is the right thing to do. The state of Florida has put money towards our project. I believe that the city council in 1933 bought that land to improve it. They didn't have the money to do it at the time. And so we owe it to them, we owe it to all of our residents to do the right thing and move that park project forward. And we formed a major task force to review the plan involving residents from all surrounding neighborhoods who need to be a part of it. And my original grant application, which was actually primarily my design, was somewhat altered, and it should have been. I think it needed to have that community touch. But it also needed to make sure that every part of the city was involved in the park and everybody would enjoy whatever it was that ended up being built there. So the city council stood firm, would not back down, even though they had a lot of pressure, even had threats to run against them to remove them from the council, but they said they would vote the right way and stay with it. Built the park. We had a beautiful dedication, and that park is still there today, and that was about 20 years ago, nearly 20 years ago.
Thank you. That was a strong answer.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Councilwoman Warner, can I ask one question of Mr. Drum?
Okay.
Well, seeing as how Councilwoman Warner was late, and thanks to work and the weather, probably my question would be, what would be your plan for your first day on the job and getting to know your staff, and what would you do to make sure that the staff got to know and was comfortable with you right away?
Okay, the first day on the job, I would definitely want to meet with the department directors, and I probably may have that opportunity even prior to that, but I would definitely like to get out and meet with them because I know that's a team that I will work with very frequently to accomplish the goals of the council. And I think, and you can't go every day, but I would like to plan out at that point how I'm going to go out to each of the departments and meet with the staff. because I don't want to say that I've been there 30 days and that someone said they haven't even met the new city manager yet. So I would definitely want to get out there and do that. So working with initially the staff, get around City Hall, make sure I've met everyone in City Hall day one. Is everyone still there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I know the pictures went down for me, but okay. So I would get out and actually try to meet everyone. The very first day, it's going to be City Hall, and then I'm going to make a plan to get out to each department and meet with the fire shifts. I know I have to show up 3 different days at the fire department, meet with the various shifts at the police department to make sure I have an opportunity to have a really good frank discussion with the city staff. And knowing when I'm coming in, I'm going to listen. I'm not coming in and say this is how everything will be day one. I want to hear from them, to hear what they see are the successes that they see have been some of the stumbling blocks in the past. I think it'd be a good conversation to have with staff. So I focus on that first. I definitely would want to meet with all of you one-on-one to talk about your goals individually, and that to ask you, and that might be a question at some point, why you individually ran for the office of the city council and what you're hoping to accomplish in your term.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I'm going to ask this one question right here. What do you feel is the difference between a good manager and a good leader?
Well, I think it's good for a city manager to be both. I mean, if you just have one of the skills, then you may be leaving half of the job on the table there. But I think a good manager is someone who knows the details, knows the operation, knows the finances, keeps everything in good shape, works to put in place a process of what needs to be done, and measures results. And that could be financial, that could be a program, that could be a project, and that's important, especially in city government. The good leader, second part, and I think that's, again, important as well with the city manager. I think you've got to be able to get out again to those departments I talked about a little earlier and inspire those folks. You need to not just say, this is the job, you have a good paycheck, come to work, you have good benefits, but to help them understand those things that we, the manager and the council work on, are your vision, your goals, your master plan. I don't like it when they feel that it's something that came from on high that everyone must follow, but it's more or less something that's ours. And so to work with them to understand this is something we all are doing as a team to accomplish, because the city manager's accomplishments or the mayor or the council's accomplishments are really the employees' accomplishments. I mean, the truth is the majority of the work that gets done on a daily basis, whether it's mowing the grass or putting out a fire, is done by the staff. And so they need to take a pride in what our goals are and what our accomplishments are. So I really think it's buy-in. I think a good leader is someone who can inspire the staff, that basically not makes them feel that they have to accomplish something because they're told to. They want to go out and do it because you've inspired them and made them understand that they're a part of the organization.
All right. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Deputy Mayor Goins, you had another question you wanted to...
Yes. This question has something to do with our employees and insurance. So have you had any experience with negotiating with unions and insurance carriers? If so, what was your experience like, and what would you have done differently?
Okay, I have experience negotiating contracts with unions, and it's all in Florida. In Georgia, oddly enough, the state is not allowed for public employees to organize in unions. So while in Florida, I did negotiate contracts with the PBA for police and also the IAFF for the firefighters. And so I've had that ability working on contract negotiation in Zephyr Hill. I was the primary negotiator and working with the union representatives sentence by sentence on our contracts to make sure we got to some solution. I've never reached a point of impasse that we had to go to an arbitrator. We were able to come to some solution. And that's it. The other city I was in, High Springs, we also worked contracts. And occasionally you would go through, and we've had some differences here and there, and as we went through case by case of disciplinary issues. And sometimes they went to arbitration, but Sometimes if we have a rule in place and a policy in place, you make sure that your staff lives up to those policies and those the regulations. So, but overall, I've had a good relationship with the unions to make sure everything's in place, and it's worked out well for the city and for the unions.
Okay, thank you, sir. And I know I asked you to take a moment to tell us a little bit about yourself, but could you tell us what your interests in the city of Cocoa is? Just tell us a little bit about why you're interested in coming to the city of Cocoa. Or
well, I was excited to see the city of Cocoa open. Actually, my wife, when I met my wife almost 20 years ago, she was a resident of Brevard County. She lived initially in Rockledge and then down to Melbourne. And so we still have some family in that area. And so we find ourselves going to Brevard County fairly frequently, or they come this direction. So we really like the idea of coming back to that part of Florida. When I left Florida to come to Georgia 5 years ago, I realized it was probably not a long-term situation, so I really wanted to find a good opportunity to come back to Florida as a manager, and I think Cocoa was a great opportunity. I mean, it has, again, a lot of the services I've worked with, it's a beautiful location. Some of the issues and challenges that you have are issues and challenges I've worked on in the past. And so I feel comfortable working on them. They're not something you can solve in a day, but you chip away and you take care of a piece of it at a time and build a better, stronger city. And that's what I hope to do. So I see the challenges there. I have the personal ties. I think Cocoa would be a great opportunity for me and my family.
oh, thank you, sir. We got enough time for one more question. We have a Councilwoman Warner.
Yes, and I hate that we lost the video, Jim, but we can still hear you, and that's a good thing. Cocoa is a community that's full of tourism, and a lot of our economy for our downtown and our merchants depends on tourism. Do you have any experience in a community that depends heavily on tourism, and can you describe, what that's like and how you feel you can deal with that?
Okay, so not completely clear, but I'm thinking the question is, what has my experience been in working with a city that has tourism?
A city that's, that depends heavily on tourism for keeping downtown businesses operating.
Oh, yes, okay, very good. One of my great interests, actually, is historic preservation. It's something I really love. Old architecture and old buildings. I really think it gives your community a unique look, no matter whether it's Cocoa or it's downtown Orlando, which was once a small town. So I really enjoyed actually trying to work with downtown development and trying to make your downtown, especially. I often think the downtown of any city is its front porch. You're often judged by what your front porch looks like on your house as people pass by. So people who get an impression of what your community is often get it from that downtown community. And so I enjoy working and trying to do some, again, I know the question is tourism, but to try to build that as a destination. And I've done that, and most of the communities I've been in and working in the redevelopment of downtown, whether it's bringing in restaurants, entertainment venues, and recruiting businesses, but also festivals. I would say we do some of that here in Brunswick. We see some tourism come here because of Jekyll Island and St. Simon's Island, which are our neighbors. And so it's always an effort to say, if they're here for a 2 or 3 day beach vacation, what can we do to pull them in downtown for something while they're here for a day or two? And here we worked to recruit a microbrewery downtown, and we were successful in getting them to purchase an old 1800s building and provided some incentives to come in and rebuild the building primarily in the interior and preserve the outer shell as a great historic building, but to bring people in downtown for the microbrewery and music and entertainment. so we in the communities I've been in, we've used the Main Street approach, which is very popular in Florida, and some of them we graduated out of that and then took it further. But to make sure we have events, whether it's monthly, First Fridays, parades, festivals, anything we could do to try to pull people in, like we said in our case here, to take them, those visitors that are coming to the coast or the beach, to come spend a little bit of time in our city and spend some money while they're here. Additionally, in my experience, I was in High Springs, Florida, and if anyone's familiar with High Springs, it's just above Gainesville, and so we are a little bit close to the University of Florida, so we have a lot of people that kind of come and go to there. But High Springs actually has Clearwater Springs, so if you're looking for a vacation away from the coast, you can go up in a canoe or tube on the rivers, and so we were sort of a canoe outpost type ecotourism community, and so we had a lot of nice gift shops and little small restaurants, and again, we would try to have musical events, things to keep people and try to pull them off the river while they were here, and again, spend some time in our city and spend some money and help those local businesses. So I have had that opportunity to work with the chamber and some tourist committees on the county level and city level to see how to best sell your community to bring those tourist dollars in.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. And we started a little bit late, so I'm going to squeeze in just one last question, Councilwoman Cost, and that'll be it.
Okay, James. Well, like all cities, we have a lot of different stakeholder groups, and sometimes it seems like we're very divided. Not all times, but there are times when we seem divided and people become hardened in their position. Do you have any techniques, or how do you work to create that atmosphere of trust and unity and kind of cross those divides? Okay. And I think I missed a little beginning of that, but I think you were saying that sometimes the council is divided on issues. Is that how it started?
I was thinking about the community more, but you can address
okay,
that.
it's the
You can
community,
take
not
that
the council.
approach
Okay.
if you like.
Well, that's good to hear. I've had that as well. I would say, truly, it's not been as much that way here in the city of Brunswick. I've been in Georgia. But when I was in High Springs, Florida, it was very active. We had a lot of influence from the university, a lot of teachers and students and professors. And we had a lot of old families that had been farmers and ranchers. And so there's people coming in from different backgrounds. And there was really a difference of how people thought things should be. And so when we would realize that we had found some of these issues, we would actually put together a task force. Really believe that people coming forward, even if they were coming from two totally different directions, both sides had good ideas, but they were opposing. And so what we really need to do is try to bring them together for a good, honest discussion and try to work out the best parts of both plans. And so what I've often done is recommended to the council is that we define what the issue is, put out a resolution creating a task force, and find the most qualified people locally to serve on it. It's not meant to be a permanent advisory committee because sometimes they'll go on forever and ever, and you may not get a good answer because they believe they have forever and ever to resolve the issue. A task force, in my case, has been limited to 6 to 8 months, and we would have a limitation of meetings. And I did that for economic development plans. I did that to determine our downtown sign guidelines, which were very controversial in the downtown. Some people think the larger the sign, the more business they'll get. Some people think the more beauty it is, the more business they'll get. So we had a lot of different views in High Springs of that, and a number of task forces that were led by the mayor. And sometimes we would put the vice mayor in charge of our task forces, and they would chair it, and we would have a lot of stakeholders from all the different groups in the community. And it could be a recreation issue. It could have been, again, a business economic issue. There's a number of different issues that popped up that I would recommend that and study it and come up with a good overall strategy for the city commission to follow, the council to follow.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate that. And it's been a pleasure talking to you, and we hope that you're staying safe, you and your family. And
We are.
so with that being said, any last comments before you go, or?
I'm sorry?
I said, do you have any last comments or that you would like to make
Oh,
before?
any last comments? Okay. Only to say that I'm really interested again in the position. I really think that I think my resume and my experience in Florida really is important. And when you're working in Florida, the laws are so unique. And even to the point that when I came to Georgia, not wanting to lose that tie, I made sure I attended the Florida City County Management Association every year on the conference to keep up with Florida law so I wouldn't fall behind and become rusty. And so I guess in that way I'm kind of able to make my way through Georgia law and Florida law, but it actually, I think it's been very helpful. So I got a good, strong background that I believe I could bring a lot of excitement and change for the city of Cocoa. So unless there's any further questions, all I have tonight.
Thank you, sir. No further question, but enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you for coming on and speaking with us.
Not a problem.
Thank you, sir.
Hopefully I'll talk with you in person. It might be a little bit more clear than the telephone.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Have a good evening.
Okay, you too. Is that Ms. Young? Is she on?
No. Call it again. Okay. Hey, good afternoon, Karen. How are you doing? This is Melissa and the HR Mayor of the City of Cocoa. We're all standing by to begin the meeting. You have a big speaker and a couple of
His connection on his end dropped,
the city council that are speaking.
but since he was directly dialed, you saw the audio.
Okay, thank you. One moment.
Lord, can you ever access the link? She was on there.
So, Karen, could you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Okay, we believe you may have been emailed a link to the go-to meeting. Are you able to access the
I am doing the link right now, as a matter of fact.
There she is.
It is loading webcam, and it has, I see the commission, but I guess it must be a test. Is that what this is?
No,
It says
you can
test,
see the
but
city
it's on.
council. You're into the live link.
Okay, perfect. Then I'm in the live link then.
Yeah, we're working out the technical aspects to be able to see you at this time, but it sounds like we can hear you.
She may have to activate her camera.
Sure, I can put my camera on. That's probably, you want me to do that for you?
Yes, please.
Yes, ma'am.
You got it. How's that? Can you see me now?
No. Not
Okay,
yet.
hold on. Let me. How about that?
There you go.
There you go. I see
We
me
got
up on
you.
the screen.
Okay. All right, then we'll ask maybe the mayor to speak, just to make sure that you can hear the questions for the council. Mayor, can you address?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me okay?
I can, Mayor.
Okay. Well, welcome. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. Although I will be honest, it's about to have a major rain shower here. So if you hear thunder, it's not coming from you guys. It's coming from the weather down here in West Palm. So
Okay.
I just wanted to let you know.
Sounds good. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started here. If you can, just please take a moment to tell us about yourself and why you're interested in the city of Cocoa.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I'm real excited about the opportunity here. I did a lot of research, read your budget, I read your strategic plan, talked to several people within the community, and it just seems like a really good match for me. I've been in Florida for a long time, so I understand all the necessities and the intricacies that come with Florida. I've been in a city that's about your size, which is the city of Parkland, met and dealt with most of the issues that you have. I'm looking for some place for a long tenure. This is not a stepping stone for me. When I go to places, I generally stay long. When I was the city manager of Parkland, I was there for 13 years, 10 of them being the city manager. So I'm bringing my family up. God bless. My dad is 90. My mom is 88. So they're going to be coming up and moving up with us. And the area is beautiful. I think the opportunities within the city match really well with what I can provide. I'm absolutely who you see I am. I'm honest. I'm upfront. I tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm very inclusive, great communication, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from you and me showing you why I should be your next city manager.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Our first question is going to come from our Deputy Mayor Goins.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
All right, awesome. All right, my first question is, what is your ideal plan to spark growth and development in our most impoverished areas without displacing the current residents?
Deputy Mayor, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you really well. Maybe, Mayor, you could read it, it seems, or I'm not sure what the issue was.
Maybe that place.
All right, can you hear me now? Hear me better?
It's like it's kind of shaky. It's not clear on the on what you're saying. I apologize.
I'll read it for the Deputy Mayor. What is your ideal plan to spark growth and development in our most impoverished areas without displacing the current residents? You understand?
That was perfect. Thank
Okay.
you very much, Commissioner, Council Member. I've addressed this in Delray Beach. Delray Beach is also in a situation, there was one area in the city that actually had a 17% unemployment rate. And so we were really trying to figure out how do we bring some sort of money worth without gentrifying the area and forcing people to have to leave. It's not an easy answer. You have to work a lot with the community groups. You have to work, again, with your downtown. If it's downtown, you have your CRA, you deal with your CRA. In Delray, what we dealt is we also had a supermarket desert there. We actually worked with a developer in a P3, which is a public-private partnership, where typically the city provides something and a developer provides something. In this instance, the CRA and the city worked together to group property together, and the developer came in and promised to build affordable housing, as well as bring in a shopping center, as well as the opportunity in order to also bring in other businesses that the neighborhood could use. I think you also need to work with your housing authorities that are there. Obviously, you can build houses. We actually, again, in Delray, we worked with our high school in which we donated land, and then what we did is we were able to train the high school students with a trade, so when they came out of school, they had a job, and we helped them build houses that people could go into, and left those houses with some restrictions so that the value of the homes wouldn't increase so substantially that would force the individual to have to move, or what the neighborhood was like, whether they have to leave. I think the third thing you have to look at is the historic nature of the community and how much that community's identity matters to the people who are residing there. And I think that, again, if you can work all those things together, I think you would be able to create an environment that would encourage development or redevelopment, but at the same time not removing or requiring people to move from the location which they may want to stay. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you,
Ma'am,
appreciate it.
Thank you. My next question is going to come from Councilwoman Warner, District 2.
Hi, Karen. Thanks for being with us tonight. You have obviously done some homework on the city of Cocoa. So based on the knowledge that you have now, what is your biggest concern about coming to work here?
That's a great question. I was afraid you were going to ask me what's the biggest, because there's always so many. There's the general concerns that you have as a city manager that affect all cities. cybersecurity, active shooters, so those are always in the back of the mind. From my research, I think there are, council member, I apologize, I don't think I can give you one, because I think there are several. One certainly is the image of the city, right? And I think that's important because that's what drives your population, that's what drives your development. You know what, let me backtrack. I think I can. The one I would say is sustainability, okay? And for me, sustainability is broad. So it's environmental sustainability. So we got to address if there's any flooding, seawalls, pollution in the water, whatever it is. Then there's financial sustainability. Do we have enough money to sustain ourselves for the future? Because we're not only living for today, but we're living for tomorrow. You then have people sustainability. Is there inclusion, diversity? And that could mean young to old, families to singles, Generation X to Generation Y. It could mean, backgrounds where you come from. It could be race. It could be nationality. It could be religion. All these things are what ultimately gives you a quality of life. And obviously, again, crime is in that sustainability, and people and places. Do people want to come there? Cocoa Village, we want to highlight that. We want people to come there. We want parks. These are the things that will drive your community to want to stay there, the next generation to come in there, and to ensure that the city of Cocoa is there in the future.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, we're going to move over to Councilwoman Cost, District 3.
I'm in District 4.
4, I'm sorry. I'm getting you two mixed up. I don't know why.
Second time you do that.
Okay, just to confirm, we are to ask each candidate the same
The same
questions,
question,
right?
yes.
Okay,
okay.
great. How you doing, Karen?
I'm doing great, thank you. How about you?
Oh, man, I'm glad I'm not in your shoes. This has got to be like the interview, they do to make you sweat, right? Okay, so we live in tumultuous times. I think we all can agree to that with the events of the last year. And sitting on the dais, or as in the most important position, our city manager, requires courage. Can you share with us an experience you had where you had to show your courage or guide your council to be courageous?
Sorry, if you could say it one more time for me, just to make sure I got the question right.
Yes. Can you share with us one experience where you had to be courageous or you guided your council to be courageous?
Okay, thank you. So I would have to say this is in Parkland. And, I know probably all know about Parkland. Fortunately for me, I left before the shooting happened. So I didn't personally have to deal with that. But during the time I was there, there was a lot of controversy regarding a charter school coming in. And, the concern from some of the commissioners was that, the A-rated, the upper level students would end up leaving the public schools and going to the private schools and would bring down the school rating of the schools. Another issue they had was traffic, because they felt that a lot of the individuals would be coming from outside of Parkland, and therefore the local roadways would fill up with non-residents, which they were not looking for. On the other hand, on the other side, was the issue that the public schools in Parkland were overcrowded. That the opportunity that a private school could give is different than what a public school could give. And it also provided an opportunity for individuals outside of Parkland to come in. Parkland was a very closed community and really have the diversity and the knowledge of other cities and other individuals coming in was a benefit, was an experience for the kids. The commission received a lot of adverse from particularly the communities that have surrounded the property. Unfortunately, and again, my strength is in planning and zoning is kind of where I came up from. Previous job for me was as an attorney. I told him, I said, look, when you've got zoning, you have some discretion, but you don't always have full discretion. And at the point where this property was, a charter school was actually permitted. And I, discussed with the commissioners, and look, if you hire me as your city manager, I'm a very strong believer in communication. I treasure the opportunity to talk with each and every one of you individually in order for sound bites to be discussed, to think about your thoughts, for me to talk about what the facts and figures show. A lot of false information was being sent out. So I told the commission, look, at this point, the only discretion you have would be to end up in a lawsuit. And would it be advantageous to the city of Parkland to end up in a lawsuit where that money could be spent for other purposes? And, it took a lot of courage in order for a staff, including myself and my planning director, in order to get up and say, commission, you have some discretion. We can help negotiate what some of the impacts may be. So, we encouraged a longer throat in the school to prevent the traffic from sitting out on the streets. We phased in the students coming into the school. It was a K through 8. So we said start through K through 5. Let's see how that goes. We can look at a traffic study, and then we can go forward. So that way, we weren't placing ourselves in a lawsuit, but at the same time, I didn't want to say to the commission, you can't address what yours or your residents' concerns are. We can try to address those as conditions of approval and work with the developer in order to address whatever those issues that are out there and need to be addressed. And that's how it worked out. It actually, I had already left before the approvals, but I took a look at the conditions, and that's exactly what they did. They ended up not prohibiting it. They ended up working with the developer, and that, like I said, took a lot of courage because a lot of the residents were against it. It took a lot of meetings to talk with those residents and to provide them the opportunity. I will tell you, in most instances, when you're in a heated situation, people want to be heard. You can't always give them the answer they want, but as long as you're listening to them, that matters to them. And I think that's important. That's one of the things that I do strive on.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. Councilman Bover.
District 3.
District 3.
Good evening, Karen. How are you?
I'm doing great. You got the districts right.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, what strength do you bring that will contribute to meeting the expectations of this position?
So, I guess this is the opportunity that I'm really going to tout myself. I bring a lot of strengths. First of all, there are a lot of distinctions I have from the other candidates. As I said, I'm from Florida. I think there's a big difference between Georgia and Florida. If you've never dealt with sunshine law violations, you don't know what that's like, or the public records requests that are in Florida, or, I've had to deal with ADA and your website. So I've dealt with a lot of the issues that have to be addressed in Florida that you don't get in Georgia. I've been a manager of a city and not of a county, and I think there's a big difference between those. County, how many of us really will go to the county seat, but they'll certainly show up at your city hall because it's right nearby. So I understand that. I understand the nature of a population that is very demanding. When I was in the city of Parkland, let me tell you, if you didn't respond to someone's email like within 3 hours, you were late. So I understand that there's a huge demand, and you're competing with social media right now. And to educate my commission, which I think is another strength that I can provide to you, is that when I was with my commission, we were friends. It wasn't only just a job. When I left Parkland, I left 3 years ago until the virus came in, I was meeting with 2 of my commissioners for lunch every month. I happen to know my 2 commissioners advanced. As a matter of fact, one of my commissioners is the state of Florida emergency manager, Jared Moskowitz. So if you hire me and we have any FEMA problems, I've got a person to go to. So, so I've become friends with them. I've been invited to weddings and births and things like that because I built that trust. I built that communication, and I built that kind of relationship. I also believe that our staff is our number one asset. I mean, honestly, they can help us or hurt us the most. And so I'm a firm believer in, empowering staff. I don't like to micromanage. I believe in compensating them appropriately. I believe that staff should be held accountable. I'll tell you, my management style is I am cooperative, but result-oriented, and I think the two aren't separate. I think I'm a very big on teams and working together, pulling people from different areas to come up with solutions, but you can't just sit in these meetings. You ultimately got to come up with a result because your residents are looking to see where their money's being spent. I am very flexible is my strength. I've probably been in charge of almost every department that the city of Cocoa has. One way or the other. I've done finance, IT, parks, public works, utilities, planning, building, HR, clerk's office. I've done fire, police. So, I mean, I know enough about everything, but I don't have to be the expert, right? I need to have people around me who are smarter and who certainly can help me. I've dealt with some of the issues you've dealt with, this inclusion, diversity, what's going on now with Black Lives Matter. I've had to deal with that in Delray. I don't know if you're aware, but Delray had a resolution adopted in 1929 prohibited Black residents from going to the east side of the city. So they have a big history regarding racial divide in their particular city. And I have economic development. As a planner, that's certainly my background. I've done studies. I've gone door to door with businesses. These are all areas I think that I can bring expertise to, and I certainly can work with the staff and work with the commission in order to make sure that we're meeting the demands and the needs and the desires of both the council and of the residents.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And I have one final question here for you. And it's, what do you feel is the difference between a good manager and a good leader?
One more time, it was a good leader versus
A good manager versus a good leader.
So there definitely is a difference. In my mind, a leader is a manager, but has additional skills. The leader is the one that's going to motivate the staff. The leader is going to talk about the vision, is going to talk about the traits and the core values. And as a leader, you have to be the one to be the first one to show that. You cannot expect your staff to do something that you wouldn't do. And that's what a leader does. So, when I'm out on the street and I see a snipe sign on the side that's illegal, I don't pass it. I stop, I put it in my car. I'm no better than anybody else. And that's a core value that a leader has to show to their staff, to say, this is what is expected of us, and this is what we're going to provide. Motivation is another one that I think is important for a leader. And motivation is different for all sorts of people. I'll tell you, one of my motivations that I did is, I don't know if you all remember when there was the ice bucket challenge that they had. I used that as a motivational tool for my staff, in which I did it as a fundraising to say whoever raised the most money would be the one to pour the bucket over me. And so it was like a race. It was just like, it was unbelievable. And the money went to a great organization. And in the end, just if anybody wanted to know, the police chief was the one who won. And he talks to this day about he was the one to make me wet without any consequences. A manager tends to more day-to-day stuff. And that doesn't mean that a leader doesn't do that either, but just because you're a manager doesn't make you a leader, but typically a leader will make you a manager. So I hope that gives you enough of a distinction or examples of what the difference is.
Yes, ma'am, that was a great answer. I appreciate that. And this right here is an opportunity right now for any other comments you'd like to make, or just, that you want people to know about you. I mean, this is a great opportunity right now for you to do that before we close out this session.
Well, you know, you give somebody like me an opportunity to talk, we're always going to talk. So thank you for the opportunity. Look, I'm excited about being in this group. I hope I make it to the next step. As you can tell, I'm very personable. I won't sit behind my desk, guys. I have an open door policy. Like I said, I'll tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. I believe as being a facilitator, I believe in mentoring. I can tell you a story. I had a parks director in Parkland who was being hammered by his staff. He was young, one of the millenniums, and didn't have great strength as a supervisor. I could have fired him, but I didn't. Instead, what I did is I took him under my wing. I made him my PIO, public information officer, figuring as a Generation X that why he would be great in social media. He was. He rebuilt our entire website, helped us in social media, and in the interim, I helped on understanding what you need to be a manager, to be a supervisor, helped strengthen his personality and support for him. And today, he had to leave Parkland because his wife got transferred. Today, he's actually the parks director over at Claremont. I'm sure if any of you have been to Claremont, it's like one of the premier parks department with everything they got going on there. I could have devastated him, but instead of doing that, because I believe our job is to make our people better, know their weaknesses and help improve them, I've actually made him a better person and made him very successful. So I'm that type of person. But, again, I'm not here for change's sake. Again, I will look at everybody fairly. I would love to hear from everybody. My first 90 days would be listening. I'm not here to go do wholesale changes. I'm here to see what's the good, the bad, the ugly. However, I will say that I am a believer in reviewing processes and procedures because I always feel there's always continuous improvement. We can always do better than what we've been doing. I'd like to take Cocoa to the next step. I believe I can take it to the next step. I'm excited about the opportunity that there are here. And like I said, I'm looking for a long-term commitment, and I think it'll be great. I think a lot of what I can bring to it aligns very well with my history. And if there's any other questions, I'd be more than willing to answer them.
Thank you, ma'am. It was such a pleasure listening to you, and we're so grateful that you came on today, and looking forward to possibly speaking to you again. And we just hope that you enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe.
And the same to all of you. And all, please be healthy. I'm glad you're all wearing masks. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And Ben, thank you. You have a wonderful city. And hopefully I'll hear from you. And
Thank
you
you.
have a great night now.
Appreciate it. You too.
Bye.
Okay.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay, we got a little time before our next individual come on, so if any want to take a restroom break quick, this is an opportunity.
Okay, James, you want to speak up to make sure we can hear you okay?
Yes, Jim Gleason here from City of Winter Garden. Welcome.
Yes, sir. How are you doing today?
Very well. Kind of a little nervous and been anticipating this all day, even though I had the opportunity to visit your city on Friday and Monday. So I apologize. I logged on and I didn't realize that y'all were trying to call as I was trying to connect through the go-to meeting.
Oh, okay. Well, sir, if you're ready, we're ready to get started. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
First thing, if you don't mind, could you please just take a moment to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in the city of Cocoa?
I think he dropped. It looked like he dropped out of the bridge. He may have dropped off. Let me get this. But saw it flash up on the screen, and I think. I don't have a connection here anymore. Yeah.
There's some nasty weather over where he's at.
Hello, Jim? Hey, whatever reason, I'm not sure which end it dropped out. So we'll try it through this bridge one more time. Are you calling us from your 407-790-0816 number? Right, and maybe that's where the connection dropped out. So what we'll do, we'll try it through this medium, with you talking through your camera. If it drops off again, I'll call you directly from our phone here to that cell phone number, okay? Okay, so we'll pick back up. I'll have the mayor will readdress his question to you. Okay. Okay, we got you back, Jim?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, Jim, how you doing, man?
Okay, sir. Nice to talk to you again.
Okay. Yeah, my first question is, just take a moment to tell us about yourself and why you're interested in the city of Cocoa.
Well, probably like the five of us on your list, I mean, we're all professional city managers. I've been a credentialed manager since 2006, and I've been with the city of Lake County for the last 9 years. And while it's been a very good run and I've done some very successful things, over the last couple of months it's become very difficult. I've had to lead the city through a process dealing with its single city fire station, and one of the recommendations was to merge with Lake County, and that was the unanimous vote of the council minus one member whose spouse happens to be the fire chief. And as you all know, in a city, sometimes in public safety, they can become very vocal, and kind of has become a little bit of a very difficult and hostile work environment. And I was fortunate enough, to be very honest, to see that the city of Cocoa was seeking a position. And when I did some research on that, a couple of things stuck out. One, some great opportunities and some great challenges that your city offers and has, and something that I would love to be able to bring my experience and my abilities to. And on a personal level, having lived in Florida since 1965, I love the coast, and I'd love nothing better than to find an opportunity that got me close to the water. And I know that may not be a professional reason to tell you why I applied, but it's definitely a personal reason. It's something that I've enjoyed since I've been living in Florida since 1965.
All right, thank you, sir. We're going to start off with a question from our Deputy Mayor, District 1, Mr. Goins.
How you doing, Mr. Gleason?
How you doing, Mr. Quinn?
All right. What is your ideal plan to spark growth and development in our most impoverished areas without displacing the current residents?
Well, first of all, I know that you have a CRA in place, and that is one of the first tools that needs to be looked at, and how it can be maximized in reference to the incremental revenue increase. But that also will take the community, the business association, and also ensuring that you have adequate infrastructure investment in that portion of town, so that the services are there and necessary for businesses that may want to expand and to come in. Also is the opportunity to look at involving the Department of Economic Opportunity, and also with the federal agency, because I've worked both at the federal and the state level in securing both grants and economic incentive money to help revitalize areas. I was very successful in my time with the city of Ocoee in developing, getting $1.2 million from both the feds in developing a recreation center that was also used for Social Security and veterans benefits, which tied in why the federal government felt the need to invest in that area. And also working with state legislatures of all parties. As I tell people, while we're a very polarized political system, in a job as city manager, you try not to see blue or red, you see green. And green meaning if someone's got an opportunity at a grant or an economic opportunity that you're able to apply for, you're able to work with on a partnership, then you seek it and you do what you need to be able to go after those opportunities and see to it that those investments are made in that portion of town that creates jobs, creates opportunity, and maybe economic incentive for businesses to open and relocate in that area, just as you've done very successfully involving your riverfront CRA and redevelopment. Well, maybe difference in location, but some of the very same successful tools that we utilize there can be maximized also in that second CRA area that is ripe for development.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on to District 2, Councilwoman Warner.
Hey, Jim, how you doing?
Hello, ma'am. How are you doing again?
Good. First day on the job, what's the very first thing you're going to do to pull your team together and get to know them and let them get to know you?
Well, first thing you do is start with your staff meeting. You bring in all of your directors and what has been a management team. And while I have attempted to meet with several of them on Friday and Monday, but due to COVID-19 and also vacation schedules and distancing, I wasn't able to meet with all, but I was able to meet with several one-on-one. But on day one is you'd spend your time getting them all together and letting them educate you on their role, what they have been doing for the city, how they see the direction going. And I know we don't want a city that is run by a city manager and employees. It's a city that's run by policy that's set by the mayor and council, but they also would be very valuable, especially for a new manager from outside the area, help filling in the gaps, updating you on their departments, on their needs, and then developing that rapport on how we would start to work together for the benefit of not only the departments, but then how the working with that department and working with the city manager can enhance and ensure that the policies that the mayor and council have passed and want imposed are put in place and effectively developed.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have District 3, Councilman Bover.
Good evening, James.
Good evening, sir.
What's the strengths do you bring that will contribute to the meeting the expectations of this position?
One is I'm a decisive leader. I'm not afraid to make decisions. I think that I am fair. I'm equitable. I do not micromanage. I believe greatly in allowing people who have the talent and the skills to do their job. As I tell people, sometimes as a city manager, you know a little bit about police, you know a little bit about fire, you know a little bit about development, you know a little bit about utilities, but you can also know a little bit to where you can be dangerous. And by that, what I mean is that you know smartly when to step back and let those with the experience do their job. And the best thing you can do is learn how you help them do their job. Some people like to communicate regularly, check in, and others, if they know what the goals and the objectives are and the deadline, then they show up and bring you back that project when it's there. I have no problem making quick and decisive decisions based on information that's in front of me. And I'm also, as I said, treat people fairly and equally, but I also recognize that everybody works at a different level and a different style. And a manager is best when they recognize that and they adapt themselves so that they allow each one of those individuals to blossom as they work best with your guidance.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Councilwoman Cos from District 4.
Hey, James.
Evening, ma'am.
Well, I think you've already shared one example, but could you share with us an example of when you've had to display courage or encourage your council to be courageous? I think leadership, particularly in these tumultuous times, requires courage. Do you have an example of that?
Yes, ma'am. One was actually when I was brought into the city of Mascot in February in 2011. The city was probably a matter of months away of what was be classified in Florida as called a financial emergency. I think in layman's term, we can use the term bankruptcy. They were $6 million in debt. They had $300,000 in reserves that was being drained daily. The property values in the community at the bottom of the housing market had crashed a total of 67%. And if they didn't take some dramatic action, quite honestly, we would have been self-reporting to the state, which then would require the governor and the legislature to step in. And what the council, with hopefully my leadership and direction, made a very tough decision of raising a millage rate from 7.6 mils to 9.6147. And we had an immediate freeze on positions. And unfortunately, like in many cities, when you find yourself in tough times, we also had to make significant holds on capital items, made police cars and public works vehicles and things last longer. And employees went through a number of years without raises because if we didn't get that debt under control, nothing else was going to matter. And it was very difficult to get elected officials to vote for a millage rate that at the time was the highest in Lake County. And the only reason it wasn't 10 mils is because we had to leave enough room for the Lake EMS, which was the ambulance transport, which was assessed on a countywide basis. Here, 9 years later, 2 weeks ago, I proposed a millage rate of 7.132. It has been the 7th year that we've reduced the millage rate. In 2017, the city was debt-free. Some of the debt went out to 2032. By paying it off early, we saved over $500,000 in future interest payments. Employees have gotten raises the last 6 years. City reserves are now $1.6 million, and the council will be voting on August 4th on selling some land that we had on the market since 2014, which will add another $1 million, which will give them about $2.4 million in reserves. So we went from very, very dire times, making some very tough decisions, to looking back today that I can probably say, while it's a small residential community, it's probably in the best financial position of any city in Lake County and well positioned to weather out the challenges that we're already seeing that the COVID's having an impact in reference to the city's finances.
Thank you.
Thank you, James. Appreciate that. I have one other quick question. What do you feel is the difference between a good manager and a good leader?
Well, a leader is by example. It's how you act every day in terms of your ethics and who you are as a person and how you treat people. A manager, as I said earlier, recognizes and understands that each one of us works differently. And the manager is able to allow those people to work in the environment that they find successful. And the easiest way for me to kind of explain that is I'm a neat freak. You walk into my office, everything has its place. Some people will joke and say it's almost like there's a template, where everything sits. I work with a city clerk today that when I walk in her office, it looks like a bomb went off. And it's a completely different style of working than I'm accustomed to. But I know when I walk in Michelle's office and I say, Michelle, do you remember that report or that item on that agenda or that CAR item? And she can move those piles around and she can pull that report out and hand it to me. And what matters in my issue there is not how neat her office is, not how organized that is what's the best environment that works for her. And I think the difference between a leader and a manager is that a leader sets the example of ethics and integrity, and a manager knows how those individuals can be encouraged to work using their own strengths, and that you also then can help strengthen and build and mentor them, but that they're able to be the most productive and the best employee they can be by sometimes you getting out of the way and recognizing, letting them work to their strengths, not your strengths.
Thank you, sir. Great answer. Those were the end of our questions, but this is an opportunity now for you to just expound a little bit, or just tell us anything else you'd like for us to know, just in closing.
I've managed from small to big, and I will tell you, I think managing in a small city like I've done the last 9 years sometimes is a little more challenging in a big city. The reason being is that you're much closer to the everyday employee, and there's little room for error in reference to departments and how you deal with. But on that other hand, I started out in the city of Ocoee, which today has a population of over 40,000 and significant number of employees and significant budget standpoints. And as I tell people that your budget principles are the same. You may move the decibels a few points and there are some more zeros, but it's still all about managing the public's money and managing it with transparency and with efficacy. And I manage my own home as I manage the public's money, and that is that before we're going to expend or we're going to ask you to spend a dime of it or a penny of it, we want to be able to justify in terms of where that's at. The other thing I will say is sometimes as managers, we're involved in projects and things that it takes years through fruition. And I know we can all Google and find items about all of us, and we're involved in politics. And I was an elected official at one time. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I started out as a city commissioner before I went on to the administrative side. And in 2014 or 15, I had an employee file a lawsuit against me for race discrimination. And it was one of the most professionally and personally traumatic experiences that I'd ever went through because of the type of person that I am and how I've lived my life and how I've worked in that environment to try to create equality and fairness. It was a kind of an eye-opener, and it's a little bit what I learned is that when you talk about something like race, which in this country is a very tough subject that we're dealing with, sometimes you've got to be aware of how the other person is perceiving that. And so, I very much regret that that opportunity happened, or not the opportunity, but that experience happened. But I just want to tie that in, if I could, onto something that if any of you all have lived in Florida for any length of time, I would ask you to go back and Google or do research on the city of Ocoee and a little bit of its history. In 1920, on Election Day, they prevented African Americans from voting. The city of Ocoee that time was 50% black and 50% white. One of the wealthiest people in town was a gentleman by the name of July Perry. And Mr. Perry was shot and arrested that day by the Orange County Sheriff and was taken to the Orange County Jail. He was lynched that evening or the next day. When I got elected to the Ocoee City Commission in 1993, I was the first outsider due to new growth to the community. And as I became aware of the history of the city, I kept challenging the council to bring this issue up, to deal with it, not to bury it and hide it into the past. And I worked with some folks whose relatives had been part of that lynching and that mob rule, the Klan that had come into that community. And it started out that it was sometimes it was a vote of 4-1, 4-1, 4-1. Over a period of time, it came 3-2. And then eventually it came 3-2 in my favor. And a few years later, I had the opportunity to come back and work as city manager for that very same community. And I started what was called a reconciliation committee. And because the community didn't even recognize Martin Luther King Day at the time. If you will just check here recently, the Florida legislature just passed in its current year funding and the renaming of a highway in Ocoee to July Perry Memorial Highway, and funded for a monument to recognize both Mr. Perry and the Black community. And my name is not on that legislation, and my name is not on that plaque, but I can tell you that it was something I started in 1993, and I saw through till 2004. And I'm very proud to be able to sit and see the results of that today, of what can happen when you plant the right seeds and you do the right work and you do the right thing, of what can happen and what can be done. And so sometimes as managers, we've got to recognize that we play an important role in maybe how we get policy implemented and how we get things started. And it's not necessarily who gets the glory, it's what happens in the end. And for me, professionally and personally, that's probably one of the biggest accomplishments. Yes, I'm proud I got a city out of debt, and they're running great today, but I'm more proud of the fact that something as horrific that took place in 1920 was finally recognized in 2020, and will be memorialized, and now will be taught in schools. And people will learn from that lesson. And hopefully the reason we teach history is so that we don't repeat the mistakes of that history. Your community offers unbelievable opportunity. You're a very diverse community. You're there in the Space Coast, and there is no reason why Cocoa can't be benefiting with the resurgence in the Space Coast and the developments happening around that area. And it all comes down to how you market, how we reach out, how we work with other governmental entities, how we work within the county, how we work with the state, how we work with the feds. I would love that opportunity to take that road with you as you build the city of Cocoa. And when someone drives through, they're not just looking at US 1 and looking at blight maybe on one side of the road and growth on the other, that they eventually look at that community as a complete destination, as a place where someone wants to live, wants to be, wants to raise a family, wants to bring a business, wants to invest a business, and wants to build a life in that community. And I would love to be part of that challenge and that opportunity.
All right, thank you, sir. We appreciate you being here today, and some of us had the pleasure of speaking with you either Friday or Monday as well, and you got a chance to see our community. But we thank you for coming on and speaking with us today, and unless you have anything else to say, we just hope that you enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the opportunity of being one of the 5. I know you all have meetings tomorrow. You have a very tough decision ahead of you. Your city is going through some challenges, both politically and staff-wise, as any city would when it goes through a change involving management. I wish you all nothing but success in that move, and I would be honored to be one of the 3 and believe that I would do one hell of a job with you and for you at this point in time in the city's future. And I thank you much for the opportunity to be part of the process.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. That being said, we'll see you all tomorrow, the same bat time, the same bat channel.
3 o'clock tomorrow, right?
Got the IT thing at 3 o'clock.
Yeah, that's, yeah, but this is, meeting's at 5:30.
We're going to be here anyhow.
Yeah. But I mean, for this particular meeting.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
So,
Motion to adjourn.
but anyway, everyone, have a great day and appreciate you coming out.